Discover new mind and body hacks to thrive as a human today. The Institute for Aliveness is here to teach you all the things you never learned in school. From talking poop, sex, childhood trauma, emotional intelligence, psychedelics, and of course, fasting and food. This is a podcast that changes lives. Join your host, Dr. Andrea Page, as she travels 7 continents to find the most captivating, impactful humans for you.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to welcome you to a new season of the podcast. This season, I bring you some of the most important embodied people in my life. From all over the world, people I've met along my journey, I thought, hey, why not share them with the world? Oh, I absolutely loved this episode with Greyson Kirby. She is definitely one of my major companions in this life. Greyson and I go back and forth inspiring one another, and you'll hear all about it in this episode. But this is essentially our catch-up where we kind of dive in deep to the reality of what's happening in life and how to show up through each step as a fully conscious, processing, evolving human. So this is definitely one not to miss. So many gems here. Oh my goodness. What a grand honor and pleasure always to connect with one of my favorite souls on earth. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just a super casual, beloved conversation with Greyson Kirby in this series. My intention is to expose you to the people that I keep close to me in my life, the people who I truly feel are walking the path of health beyond the body. It's this fierce honesty with who and what we are and how we're willing to interact with our own hero's journey through life. And so I don't think I'll say too much more otherwise to introduce you, Greyson, and you're welcome to say whatever you'd like. And I'd like to also keep this super organic in that we were talking on the phone 10 minutes ago during this time that we were supposed to record a podcast, and Greyson was just starting to speak, and I was like, "Are you sure you don't want to do the podcast now?" And it's too rich not to share. And so, this exploration of evoking our humanity and our femininity and that process, like, what does that feel like? And I had started our conversation earlier in a very tender space, as Greyson put it. And, really doing some of the tomb raiding, also, as Greyson put it, of digging inside and like realizing some things that came up for me today in relationship, of when I see something, like I go head on full force into doing the work, because it's not about the relationship or the person or anything outside of me. It's coming up to come out, and so that I can excavate the goodness of this human experience. And so I've been on and off calls all day with some of my friends that are space holders for my own journey in a really big way, and each kind of work in trauma healing or whatever other field that conveniently I get to have them as friends, and I'll call when I need. And voila. And then it's like I'm rewarded for all of my work by getting to talk to you, Greyson. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for being in my life in this way. And it's such an honor to sit with you and to walk beside you and to hear what's real. And that for me is the most incredible aspect that I am discovering in life, is that we really can show up fully, authentically, exactly as who we are in every moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the power of it, right? Is to not only be able to accept one another, but to be able to fully show up accepting ourselves when we're in those spaces that feel really sticky or shadowy, and to find that place of equanimity where we can say, and this too is part of the human experience. And even the places that feel uncomfortable. So I witnessed you in this archetype of the tomb raider, this raiding that you're doing, and this deep excavation work that goes so far beyond just the physical body and goes into the emotional body and the astral body and so many other planes of self that offers us the opportunity to shift our perspective and to have that fuller, broader experience of all that life entails. Yeah, and the confluence of our journeys, because you have been that for me. You've been the one to really open the door to exploring when I shift patterns within my physical body and notice patterns within my physical body, what changes and what alchemizes. And so much for me in my journey has, because I've been oriented this way, has come first and foremost through the emotional body and through the idea of memory and what we hold on to and what we let go of. So it's an honor to meet you in those places where we're both exploring all of what it means to be ourselves.
Yes. And where I cut you off before in our personal conversation was you were kind of taking me back through the past year relationship of inviting in that mirror being held up.
Yeah, it showed up for me, and it's fascinating to watch some of the patterns of where we move toward and where we move away from others. And yeah, it was about a year ago, and you and I had just finished doing a fast together online, and I was coming to the point of really finalizing what I felt like was the end of my edits for the memoir that I'm getting ready to put out into the world. And at that very moment, relationship showed up to show me all the places that I wasn't ready to look at, and yet was exactly what I needed to look at in order to be able to really share with the world all of who I am. And yeah, and so it's amazing because I noticed how sometimes by moving into certain relationships and then looking back at it, we can say, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have known better. And yet the perfection of it is that it really allowed me to see parts of myself that I needed to move through in order to grow more fully in my ability to be able to share who I am and the lessons that I've learned. So I understand that mirror. And for me, yeah, it was a year of really going into the shadows of self-doubt and questioning, who am I to do this? Who am I to share my journey of the world with the world? Who wants to hear this? And to watch that coming up in relationship and hiding from it, and then getting to a place of realizing that is who we are. That is what we're here to do. That's how we inspire others. The journey that it takes to actually get there, it's like wrought with all sorts of booby traps. So, yeah.
I'm sitting over here like, how could you be so crazy? Who are you to hold that back? Because I've read the book, and it was definitely one of my favorite books that I've ever read. And I know that I've read like edits ago, already almost 2 years ago when I read it. But like, yeah, I still have such a strong desire. It just happened this morning with a girl who's staying in the house I'm staying at. I'm like, I wish I could send Greyson's book to her.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And soon you will be able to. It's it's interesting as you said that, because it's it's all a process of discovery, and becoming a writer is something that I've always dreamed of, but it's always been, snippets of paper and journals that I've just filled up incessantly. And learning the process of building a book, particularly one that is memoir, and particularly one that holds other people's reflections within it, it's a really powerful thing, and it comes with a lot of responsibility. And so I've learned a ton through the process of not only writing it, as my editor says, when we write memoir, we write out towards the reader, out towards the world from our own heart, and we have to just take our soul and share it in an outward direction. And then when we edit, we actually have to do the hard work of walking all the way around that circle and looking back at ourselves, almost as if we are the mirror of the reader, and seeing all those places that we may not be ready to see, and accepting ourselves for sometimes what is a very limited perspective. So I've spent the last year really going through and saying, okay, now from where I am, now that I'm actually doing the hard work of The book is called Letting Her Go. And the hilarious part is that I finished the last sentence about, I thought I had let her go. Really? and I was just beginning that process. So yeah, it's been an incredible thing to go back through and to really look at it and be able to own all of my projections and say it from where I am now and be able to say, and yet that was a beautiful part of the journey, as messy or as obsessive or whatever it was, however it was that I was judging myself, and say, and I love that too, because that's a part of the process of being human. And so,
where does that leave us? What else do we have to catch up on? Because we're going to do it right here in public.
I know. Why not? Let's see. I think the fascinating thing is that sometimes when we invite in that total authenticity and we're ready for that, it's just amazing what blows open in our lives and all the ways that we are then both challenged and invited, because the invitation is also, gosh, it's like the tomb reading, where that you're getting ready to walk into something and it's going to be both exhilarating and have this feeling of danger, because it's going to threaten that egoic sense of who we are. And that definitely happened for me. And over, I guess the catch up is that it's really made me look at this idea of what is a hero, what is a heroine, where and how are the ways that we put ourselves and other people or things that we see in other people on a pedestal, and how hard it is to then accept that they have feet of clay, that we have feet of clay, that we are human, that there are aspects about ourselves that we can't always see, and that when we do that work of excavation, and we do see it, sometimes we have to face aspects that feel really threatening to our sense of being. We have to release these ideas of who we are over and over and over again. And so that's come up for me a lot in the last little while. And particularly for me, there's been a lot of threads within the book around the idea of father and mother and what that means, and the process of individuation, and not only going through what we don't realize we picked up as children, because we all, even if we're born to saints, there's something that we have to learn karmically, I believe, from the people and the family that we're born into. And I went through an amazing experience of, after losing my father and working through that tragedy and what that meant and how that was buried within my subconscious to protect myself, there was a man who came into my life and married my mother that I never dreamed I would call anyone father again. And he was definitely a huge hero of my book, of my story, of my life, who helped me then build this persona of a career woman, of someone who could travel the world fearlessly and build empires in the design world, and open doors that I never thought would be able to be opened. And in the process of coming to releasing this book, I then learned that all that I thought he was also a facade, and that he too had feet of clay, and that although my relationship was one that he was very much a professor and very much an incredible father figure, his relationship with my mother was completely different, and that I had to face a lot of betrayal within our family. And it really then was a reflection, one of those challenging mirrors for me of, okay, where have I been? How is this showing me where I've betrayed myself? And where am I scared or unwilling or clinging to past systems of being, rather than going into this total unknown around, okay, I'm calling myself a writer. Like, I'm really doing this. I'm not clinging to the design industry and the ways that I've known to make money and to have security. And I'm fully embracing this change and saying, I don't know how to publish a book, and yet I'm going through the process, and I'm going to see where I'm led, because I've been led synchronistically through this entire process. And yeah, so it's been beautiful because it's challenged me to look at the ways that I use social media. It's challenged me to look at the ways that I'm building a business and to really align everything authentically with me so that there is no betrayal because I'm following someone else's prescription of how business is to be done. That if it is something I want to hold sacred, then I have to create that from within. Um, so yeah, so what that's led me to is really establishing with transparency this idea of I don't know exactly what I'm doing, and yet it'll be fun to bring everyone into it and to shed those layers of perfectionism of this is the way it has to be done or it has to be absolutely perfect before I start sharing. And yeah. So that's been the biggest thing in terms of not getting into story of exactly all that um, that relationship meant. It's the ways that it's moving me forward. I feel like that are important. And so that's coming, and then the other thing that's coming as well, because I realize one of my biggest fears in all of this, perhaps it's the Leo aspect of me that is a little cowardly lion-esque that both has to put this out there into the world and at the same time is terrified too because I'm so scared of the judgment, and it's had me really face all of my own internal judgments. But I don't want it to just be a story that is a story about me. I want somehow to be able to help and inspire others through this process of what I'm calling memory alchemy, clearing our emotional bodies and clearing our memories. And so I'm in the process now of creating a course that can unite some different modalities and be able to help others to do that deep excavation work and to create art from that which may be buried deep inside of them, and to come to that process of really the same way that you've taught me to cleanse and clear my physical body, to help others to do that with their memories.
So powerful. And I mean, it's all so closely interwoven with trauma work, which was one of the first episodes on this podcast, this new series, this new season. And
yeah, thanks for receiving me. It's also been amazing because part of the journey that you've witnessed within me, because when we first met, it was in Bali, 4 years ago, actually, this week, which is kind of funny. I just saw that.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I just saw that. And that was, all body focused. And then when we reunited in Italy and I was really shedding that hyper shadow masculine shell that I had created around myself in the world of business. And that was really the opening, the cracking open and the shifting into a more feminine consciousness, or I should say a feminine way of being that then holds and is allowing me to evolve that masculine aspect of myself to build a new structure. And so this course for me is really, it's coming from that place of deep listening and the unknown, and allowing my feeling body to be the navigator, to say, to pull all of the different threads together that are out there in the galaxy of my conceptual body and mind, and and then turn it into form. So it's very much in that conception phase, and we'll see what evolves. But that's really what I'm working on right now. That's really where I am.
Wow, I love it. Do you, by chance, I don't know if the listeners are hearing it or not, but I'm hearing echo. I'm wondering if you have headphones anywhere.
Can we pause and I'll go see?
Yeah, okay. For sure. Let's you go see, and I'm going to talk to the audience for a little bit.
Okay, great.
So I wonder if I'll still have the echo here, but I want to, looks like we're good. I want to just tell you all about the amazing soul that Greyson is, and kind of how her book found its way at the very beginning of my Saturn return. She had sent it to me as one of the first 12 readers, I think, to read it over in entirety and kind of give feedback. And so I was hugely honored at that. There was a chapter in the book where it was when we were in Italy on the retreat that she mentioned, and the way that she powerfully brought that in, as well as through the entire book, Greyson's own revealing of herself, and really the conversation that she has with herself. And that's what memoir is. It's like a monologue of witnessing one's own self-growth. It not only completely coming into that extreme then of like fully embracing my Venus and Aries and celebrating it at every turn I could, I also was able to start to see the clear shadow sides of it. And every sign has shadow sides. And Greyson, yours with Venus and Virgo would be perfection and self-judgment and OCD and all of these things that you've already mentioned, right? Those are your ego karmas to wade through in this lifetime. And for me, very much as a woman, and especially in relationship to men, it was this persona it was the woman who didn't need a man. Right? And this has come out of my mouth, like as haughty as it is. I'm the rare variety of woman who doesn't need a man, right? And the line in Wonder Woman of men, are not necessary. For pleasure, men are not necessary. For procreation, of course, needed, but otherwise not necessary. When they're on the boat, going out to sea. But it's this very standoffish, very shielded, very pushing away shadow side of Venus and Aries, and the Aries archetype in general. Anyone who has Aries progressively anywhere else in their chart, whether it's Sun or rising or Mars or Mercury, it will also show up there. It's like this guardedness. And so, Greyson, I don't think I've told you any of this, but last year it was like this deep dive into self of like one thing after another of my shields coming down. And in April, I went running with a bunch of like 26-year-old super fit young guys in Cape Town, up and down these hills with a pair of shoes that were too small. They belonged to my friends. They were a size too small. And so that, like, if anything is like that Wonder Woman, it's me going and doing that. And then what happened as a result? My big toenails bruised beyond belief.
Mm.
And then my toenails proceeded to fall off over the next whatever months. Everyone at home is grossed out. I know, just my big toes. But somehow I was able to like walk through that really gracefully, and the toenail underneath grew out fast enough that it was just a very short period of time where it was like noticeable or disgusting, as one would say. But the process literally of the toenails coming off was painful and so symbolic. It was so symbolic of me being ready to put down the shields that I've held up against myself as a woman, whether that's from being out of need, of needing to really shield myself from a man who's interested in me, who I'm not interested in, or shield myself from giving people the wrong idea, or shield myself from whatever it was that I was trying to protect myself from. And this went through with someone who's definitely a past life, long time life partner, and who I've only recently accepted more as like a teacher of the feminine for me. He and I and him kind of pushing my buttons and helping these shields to drop. And someone else that I met that was willing to, like, or not only willing, but he was after pushing all the buttons and really going deep to find like my deep distrust of men. And like to the point where I had to admit all of this to myself. And that took me into the fall, and like real self-work in practicing how to differently show up and practicing how to be vulnerable, and like not needing to prove myself as a woman, which is Venus and Aries Wonder Woman, to a man, because that's not what he wants to see. He wants to see me receptive. The role of woman is radiant and receptive, and like I want to be also sensitive to the non-binary potentiality of gender. If indeed we can encompass all of it, fantastic. And in encompassing all of it, I think we should be flexible, flexitarian between the masculine and feminine. And so knowing those two sides fully. And for me, with Venus and Aries, which is a very strong fire sign that would normally be associated with masculine, having that as my femininity, it was always like, it didn't allow me to have that vulnerable soft side. And of course, in my career, when I was holding space for yoga teacher trainings or for retreats or whatever it was, like the shamanic moon in Scorpio in me would come out, and there would be this great depth, and it would excavate tears for sure, but it wasn't necessarily this vulnerable sense. It wasn't hugely vulnerable. It was more shamanic. And so yeah, doing all of that work brought me to this year, where I had certain kind of dedications to myself of how I wanted to let myself relate differently with men and do more exploration and actively seek out the mirrors, really, even in a short-term scenario. And like embody deep learning from each one in a rapid fire way, as I do with the Mars and Sagittarius as the Lara Croft Tomb Raider. So that Tomb Raider reference was not misplaced, right? That is Mars and Sagittarius. And so like fully allowing myself to learn the lessons as fast as I could. And that sped me up to April when I was in Brazil with a friend who was super amazing enough to kind of shepherd me as we were hiking through this iconic national park, Chapada Diamantina. You have to go there someday. I mean, the national park itself is bigger than many European countries. And I want to go and just like be in a motorhome there for at least a month, if not more, because there's so much to see, and it's some of the most magical splendor, like pretty much untouched, and the most diverse landscapes. Chapada Diamantina, it's in Bahia. Anyway, so there we are hiking, like day in, day out. We're both rapid hikers, and it just so happened that my involvement in the psychedelic renaissance kicked up, and I've been pulled into that whirlpool for the past 3 years plus, and it's been sped up recently. And specifically there, I was kind of willing in a new way to experiment with psilocybin mushroom. And so I had 2 very potent back-to-back mushroom trips whilst hiking that helped me excavate so much more even about myself as a woman. Because yeah, being a counselor, being a coach, being a teacher, being whatever you want to call it in this spiritual world, and doing the deep work of tomb raiding and inquiry, self-inquiry, induced self-inquiry for myself and for others, when I can have a substance that holds up the mirror in a incredible safe way, of course with setting and huge intention around it as a ceremony, as you would say, Virgo, that like in that the veil is lifted and all of my ego blocks where I cannot see myself are lifted. And then all I'm left with is being able to understand the situation from this quote unquote higher self point of view, where there's no block there. And so I become catapulted into doing incredibly efficient, effective self-work at a level unforeseen in my life. And so, yeah, those 2 days were huge, and the amount of things, for want of a better word, but like limiting beliefs or stories or fears or whatever it is that I was able to really excavate and throw out in such a short period of time because of the blessing of the mushrooms was huge. And so on the second night, I went out and I bought myself a wedding ring and I married myself. And one of the biggest realizations around relationship and men was that nothing can be taken away from me. I've been defending with these shields the whole time because I thought there was something to defend. But I am fully here in and of myself. And the me, the feminine, is so real that there's nothing that anyone else can steal or pillage or rob. So yeah, I'm wearing my green tourmaline wedding ring right now. Like it's every day I wake up and I put it on and I'm present with myself, and from that place of wholeness can I now go out into the world. And so it's a bit nascent still and early to say, but even at the very end of last month, I actually met someone who, for the first time ever for me, I was like, I could spend the rest of my life with this person. And so it's like no surprise that happens right after we've done the work of wholeness. And still, like, that might be my own self-delusion of the mind, or it could be my futurist imperative seeing 10 years into the future of what's going to happen. Like, I'm also being unattached in the now, and not selling out to the white wedding dress fantasy story, and just like showing up real every day and allowing every trigger to be the triumph of the tomb raiding. To become. So that's my catch up on relationship.
Well, I hear you and I honor you in the way in which this Teros Gamos has shown itself, revealed itself, and the way also in which combining intention and the willingness to show up beyond that space of the mind of needing to process your way through it, and inviting in that ceremony, you were able to reach this place where you could lay your weapons down. And it could only come from the realization that, oh, I was holding all these things up and holding up this idea of I don't need. And it's not now coming from a place of that pushing away the need, but from this place of witnessing and seeing within yourself elements that you weren't allowing yourself to invite in. So how beautiful that that all came, and of course now it's showing up, because you could come to that feeling within yourself. Now it can show up in your life out here, your movie of life. Mm,
Mhm.
mm,
Holographic reality.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
Wow.
It's been it's been palpable to say the least. I mean, I'm in a major Venus return cycle, and then I've had
Mhm,
for the past year since last June, Chiron going back and forth over my Venus, and Chiron is
mm,
the wounded healer, so
mm,
it's very
mm.
much about the fight. It's very much about like being with the wound and allowing for the healing. And so yeah,
Ah, ah,
yeah, yeah,
wow.
living fully alive, right? And so
Mhm,
I mean, I'm just wondering psychosomatically, like where that's going to show up or where that is showing up in my body and my life of having healed that femininity.
mm,
Like when we have somehow wounded femininity or we're not allowing ourselves to express, like on a psychosomatic level, is that when PCOT comes? Is that when ovarian cancer comes? Is that when breast cancer
mhm.
comes? You know?
And what
Mhm.
are you finding is showing up in your are there new patterns that are showing up in your daily life that either want to come through, or different aspects that want to be revealed since that trip to Brazil?
Yeah, I mean, after that, since then, well, I mean, right after I married myself, even I was intimate with a man in Brazil, in a very fun-loving, playful, like very light way.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, it's Brazil, right? So Brazil is like sex kingdom. Sex is not
Yes.
held in your pants; it's worn on your jacket. And every little 16-year-old boy in the teeniest tiniest little villages is a sex pistol. And so like that's very real, and so I got to interface even intimately and romantically in that way, um, with this man who is very much the Brazilian James Franco. He looks exactly like him, and I was just like, whoa. um, but so what happened was that we were on this teeny little island off the coast, and we met on the plane there, sitting next to each other, and it was just very, very, very like meant to happen kind of thing. And this was
Mhm.
one week or so after I had married myself, and I knew because I had my like that strong intention to have deep dive experiences where I allow myself to be triggered by whatever situation I'm going to have with whatever men every month of this year. And so this guy in April was we yeah we're going to this island, and he was staying with a friend um, when he went there. And so we were at his place, and we were having fun, being intimate. And then afterwards his friend comes in and takes off his clothes and is like, in a cute way, because it's a very playful guy who didn't speak a word of English, and my portanhol, my broken Portuguese, um, I was able to play with it. Whereas a prior version of Andy, Venus, and Aries would have 100% been offended,
Mm.
and like, how can this happen? Your friend just can't, And I just took the towel and put it over me, and we did like a dance scene to like 1940s music playing, and it was just, and we were like using like hangers as props, and it was like flirty and keeping it all light and allowing that, the sexual nature of Brazil to be breathed through me rather than
Mm.
closing myself off to it. And that was the first experience that happened after that was super powerful. The second was a man who last year I had something with, but for whatever reason it wasn't able to come through, and yet the energy was so strong, and it was like he came back around like a boomerang and came
Mm.
to me, and we were able to just like express that strong sexual urge or chemistry that was between us. And it was like that's all it wanted, was to have it be expressed, and he was closed off to that before. Or whether he knew it or not, or and so like that got to go, and then yeah, then the end of June, meeting this individual who, you know, whether it happens or not, it's still just like huge for me to the next day after I met him be like, I could spend the rest of my life with that person, and that's never anything that's ever come out of my mouth. And anyone who knows me, and anyone who knows my lectures on non-monogamy, like, and yeah, it's just, so that's been huge. Like, that's what's happened since, to answer your question.
Yeah, I hear all the ways you're exploring. By dropping the fierceness, being able to explore all these aspects of yourself and of what you desire and what you can desire and allow yourself to desire and play with, completely shifting. And also the magnetism, that aspect of it, of the boomerang that can come from when we can really bask in that feminine aspect without having to go out there and get something. That it can magnetically come back around. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, one of these close friends that was here for me today earlier, as I was like really trying to excavate even more, because it's a never ending process for whomever's listening. It's not like,
True.
I'm totally healed, I'm going to start an online course because I've done this perfectly, and publish my books because I have my sister. It's like, no, like if you're still embodied, you've still got fucking karmas to sort out. And we all do, and that's the fun of being able to be honest and present. And yeah, one of the friends that I was talking to actually just before we got on the call, she says radiate, right? Like that the other friend who's a male says receive and be vulnerable and fully prep yourself to receive. And she says radiate, like just completely be so full in and with yourself that radiates to the point of it can't help but be magically attractive. And like what that means, because I'm always, this is what I'm known for, is not letting things go esoteric at all. So for anyone listening who's like, radiate, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that's valid, right? That's valid. And what I mean by that is almost what my cacao ceremony teacher Keith down in Guatemala would do. He has a meditation called Go to Glow. I almost feel called to share it. Can I share it, Greg? We'll do the go to glow meditation. Yeah, I can't hear you, but I'm assuming that's a yes. So if anyone, yeah, okay. So if everyone closes their eyes and just starts to breathe and settle into where you are, allow your jaw to relax, allow your shoulders to relax, allow your knees and your elbows to be heavy, and allow your face muscles to relax, even if it releases like a really ugly expression on your face. And of course, notice your next inhale, notice the belly move with the inhale. And then think of something silly or funny and allow that little flirt of a curled upper lip, cheek strengthening, of perhaps an awareness and aliveness in your chest. When you think of this funny thing, or even think of nothing funny that makes it funny, and allow a smile to organically form on your face. Yes. And so with the smile on your face, allow it to grow and get bigger and bigger, and notice how the smile feels throughout your fascia, throughout the connective tissue, all through your body. Where else do you feel smile? Where else do you get a reverberation of smile? And as it gets bigger and bigger, so much that you're almost grinning like you're a lion, like super big smile, just like radiating the warmth of that smile. You felt that before from and with people. Make it big now. Make it really, really, really big. And see if you can check it back in with that flutter in the chest, that warmth. And then with your breath, see if you can send that warmth outward around the body. And with each inhale, it's like you're recharging it, going to glow, literally allowing yourself to glow so big, so hard. Big, big, big smile. Keep it there. That's where it stems from. This smile is the fuel for going to glow. Notice the mind asking why we're doing this or what we're doing. sun and mine on a mission to fully wrap itself in the doing. Smile even bigger, radiate out even more. Feel that warmth. And sit back and relax into that warmth as you're smiling hugely and radiating out. This is glow. Yeah. To stay in this if you'd like. And Keith, my cacao teacher, recommends this for border control, customs, when you're interfacing with authorities. Any kind of tense situation, just bring the go to glow. And yeah, it will alleviate the tension. And to me, in a way, that is the radiating that my friend was talking about. Like that being so full in and of your essence, being so married, betrothed to yourself, not in an egotistical way, but in a way where we are doing the excavation work and we're loving it. We're loving the collection of gems that come from the tomb raid. And that is what we can celebrate. And the celebration of life is a natural outcome of any kind of like death, little small death. Of the title of Greyson's book, Let Her Go. It's like, allow that part of you to die, all of those stories and these things that we had. And so, yeah, the life that follows death, radiating the gems that come as a gift of inheritance.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. How you doing?
Oh, I'm so great. My cat came over and climbed in my lap right after that. So I'm like, yes,
It
the
worked.
experience, truly the experience of it, something we could try to explain, but to actually experience it and to feel it is something so different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is your cat male or female?
I have 2 males. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So see, it's already working and it's attracting them all. Totally. Straight
It's gonna
up.
be a
I
great
love
day.
it. Oh God. Yeah. And yeah. I mean, there's so much more about relationship and other themes and topics, and definitely the letting go. Maybe this will spur something from you, but part of this process as well of kind of redefining my femininity and myself at large by virtue of that, after leaving my career and kind of stepping into a world of newness and futurism and tech, and emotional intelligence consulting, is that I kind of excavated in a way all of the identities that I had taken on, which were very radical extremist identities, often defined by what I'm not rather than what I am. And so, yeah, sure, nomadic, but more palpably, I'm an expat, right? I don't live in the United States, and that's a very important definition for me as an American who's spent now almost most of, or at least half of my life, and definitely almost all of my adult life abroad. And how that shaped me, and that definition, because I feel it distinguishes this strong line that needs to be there. But does that mean, just because I'm an expat, does that mean that I can't live in the States? And so like looking at that, or looking at the fact of like, oh no, I don't live in any one place, I travel full time, I don't pay rent. Or looking at the fact of like, I don't own a car, I don't normally drive cars, I drive motorbikes when I'm in Asia, or looking at all of these other things of like, Andy, you don't have a boyfriend. No, you're not going to have a boyfriend, you're not a boyfriend girl. After my last experiment in monogamy with my prior partner, which he and I actually had a beautiful reunion in the Tucson desert of Arizona in February. So that was the precursor to April as well, where we were able to really work through kind of the final little bits and dots and come again to a place of tremendous love for one another. And I think that healed, by virtue of healing that with him, it healed my relationship with monogamy, and or just committed relationship of any sort.
Yeah, huge shifts around relationship with self, and the both the fluidity and the willingness just to look at and play with, okay, what are the identities that I hold on to, and where are the places that I'm being invited to let go, and what are the new elements I'm being invited to explore, and to be kaleidoscopic in it, and to embrace all those mirrors. Wow. Yeah. I love how they're such similar journeys, you know? It's like we're all on this hero's journey, and so much of it is reflected through relationship. And when we actually, take the time to put those lenses on and to see them all as opportunities for self-reflection, the
Mm-hmm.
way that the way that the world just starts to shine and glow in totally different ways. You're like, wow, there's so much out there to explore, and it's all based on how we see it, how we choose to experience it. Mm, mm.
Mm-hmm. Ah, should we go
Mm.
anywhere past relationship, or should we just talk about relationship? What do you think?
That's a great question. Well, it's fascinating what you just brought up, and the areas of it too that show up particularly around your Venus and Aries. And it got me thinking about the mirrors of relationship and what they've been showing me over these last, months. And so much has come. It's fascinating because my Venus is in Virgo, so the priestess aspect that has been that side of me that I've been exploring and stepping more fully into, and saying, okay, how does that want to show up in the world? And the processing of what religion and ceremony and sacredness has been, and what it is becoming, and how I'm allowing it to infuse and just really shift my entire way of being. Um, yeah, that's so much of what the last year has been for me. So it's fascinating that, these cycles sort of can dictate on such a subtle level, and yet shift our entire, foundation of who we know ourselves to be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah.
Do we have any words, like words from the shifted? Not that there's not more shifting to be, but like it's
Mm,
scary to have to give up who we think we are to
tough.
become who we're going to be. Like, what are the words from the wise there? What would you say?
Yeah, it's definitely, well, it's terrifying. It's like I keep finding myself sometimes it feels like, on this cliff, and it's night, and there's all these stars out, and yet I'm about to dive, and it's trusting that those wings are really there, and that what feels, that very thin line between terror and excitement is one that we can
Mm-hmm.
dance on, over and over and over again, and to keep coming back to. For me, it's a huge practice of continuing to come back to that compassion for the self, for all those places where sometimes when we see ourselves clinging, or like, I don't want to go, I don't want to jump, or the places where we're like, I'm so excited to jump, and we do, and then we step into something that's totally unknown, and we're like, what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, to really dance with that. It's such a practice, right? It's another practice to cultivate being with those spaces inside of ourselves, and it's continually expansive. And at the same time, the surrender can feel so, it's an initiation, right? So you feel that terrifying sense of walking towards something that you know is going to shift you as you've known yourself forever.
I told you that I'm rebranding the whole virtual juice cleanse as the initiation, right?
No, that's amazing. I love
Oh, I
it.
didn't? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the vision for it, is that once I, get a CEO in and like really get people to properly scale, that this will be something that will be a birthright experience akin to an ayahuasca ceremony or going
Ugh,
to a Vipassana course, that this is something for awakening millennials, to introduce fasting into their life, and more palpably self-reflection fasting,
mm,
right? The space for transformation from the cellular and beyond.
mm.
And yeah, so the initiation is the new branding, which should release by the end of the summer.
Beautiful, beautiful, and it's so in alignment with everything we've been talking about, because it's that experiential
Mm-hmm.
initiation that is, it's beyond something that can ever be described or conceptually obtained. It's a process that you go through yourself, and to feel all those feelings that come up as you step through each each day, each moment with that awareness of how it's shifting you without even needing to know where it's leading.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. There's so much. There's so much. Something that I feel like I want to share is that whatever work I've been doing to change how I am with women in relationship to men, there's also a certain essence of having held the bar so high for myself that I attract others who are doing the same. And so over the past few months, just like these powerhouse women who have integrated and matured so palpably in their own lives are showing up for me, and it's like this such clear I see you kind of thing, whereas before like that feminine archetype of female best friend was not something that I would maybe hold on to for too long. Like people would come and go as I would have more male best friends that remained constant, which is it's very natural for the Venus and Aries archetype. But yeah, and also just makes me reflect upon when you change, like the people in your life have to get to know you anew. Because if they're going to hold you to the past version of who you were and expect that out of you, then it's almost like they don't fit anymore. And so as we mature and grow and go through the growing pains of growing and develop, it's like also we have to look at everyone else in our life, and people will meet us.
1000%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's such a wonderful element to bring up because that is also a part of the initiation and of the letting go and the non-attachment to, yeah, remaining true to yourself and trusting that others will either up level and meet themselves in those places that you're revealing to them, just as you do for yourself and through relationship, or fall away and trusting in that, and that others will continue to show up that are on that path of growth as well. Yeah.
And as deep and dark and as uncomfortable as the self work is, whatever realm of variety it is, like post Bali, so many hundreds of my clients would go back and stop drinking alcohol, and that would have tremendous repercussions either in their career life or in their marriage life or in their circle of friends. And it's like, yeah, well, facing those repercussions is part of the process. And by virtue of that, knowing that you doing your own self work in this way, by literally cleaning out your life and cleaning out your psyche and all of your escape coping patterns and mechanisms, that so strongly inspires every person around you, no matter how they react. And the stronger they react, actually, negatively, the more inspired they are secretly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That has completely been my experience with the book as well. Because so much of what I was excavating was around the idea I, spoke about father earlier, but also around mother. And the person that I was most terrified to share the copy of my book with was my own mom. And it has been tremendous in the mirror that it was of my growth process through my own lens, for her to be able to see and to initiate her own process of growth within herself. And though there were times where I thought there's no way, this is irreparable, it's beyond saving, there was nothing to save. And what was actually happening was that it was by her reading it and seeing these reflections, always held with love, was really instigating her own renewal of herself as she's known herself, and completely shifted and up-leveled our relationship to a place of authenticity that we've never had before. And so that's the amazing part, is that these surprises come. It's never necessarily who you expect it to be from, but in that willingness to say, I am going to be unabashedly authentic and true to my own process of growth and transformation, that relationships, miracles are possible in relationships, truly. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's like the mother part, especially, is so probably true. And authenticity. And that was really my mission, I think, 2 years ago, even before I went off grid. I went home to visit my parents and I told them, hey, look, I'm not going to play the role that I've been playing for the past 30 years. I am going to show up and meet you as a human, as an adult, and daddy's little girl or mommy's best friend or whatever it is. Like, I'm going to, for this 2 weeks that I'm home visiting you, or 1 week or whatever it was, I'm going to do an experiment where I'm going to consciously choose to show up in this way. And like, do you consent to this process? Are you aware of it? Can you accept this? Are you willing to work with me in this? And that they, of course, said yes. And that was the door opening. That was the portal to me being able to do that work of essentially de-rolling. I mean, there's always father, son, daughter, mother, whatever it is. You came first, I came second. Like, family constellations role, like, to accept our role is powerful, but to play into the ways in which we are keeping ourselves small to still fit in the role is not serving our greater growth. And the only result is indeed authenticity. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even when the response is not that, even when the response is whoa, and they have to step back for a bit, you never know what that will create and how it will come back around. Wow, I honor you for being able to go in and start that conversation. Yeah, it's an important one.
And you as well for having your mom read the book and for going to that point of fear. It's always worse in our mind than it ever will be in reality.
Yes, so true.
So true. And in that words to the wise kind of paragraph or whatever, of people who are starting to do the work of letting go and fully kind of stepping into the next level, not the ultimate level, but the next level of whatever it wants to express through your human journey and your karma and your dharma. I would say it's very much about going towards the tears, going into the fears, and noticing the resistance. And the only thing required is awareness. Like, I'm here actually with a friend, and for the past 2 days, she's been having a rough time where things wanted to come up, but it wasn't convenient for her, or she didn't want to fully allow herself to feel everything. And so the result of that was that she was holding a lot of it in, and it was painful for me to watch, but who am I to push her? Or, I'm her friend, I'm not a therapist. And so to just kind of hold space for her to be there. And at one point, just asking a question of, like, what do you feel right now? What are you experiencing right now? What are you, okay, that's what you're choosing. If she says, no, I actually don't want to do anything at all, then I say, well, would you like me to just sit here and not say anything as I witness you and the self-betrayal that you're kind of describing? The answer is I don't know. And then finally, like, once it's ready, like, allowing the tears to come up and going and writing and allowing whatever it is that wants to come through to come through. And it's like our patience as well for our friends and loved ones and mothers or whomever it is. It's like the seed's been planted. And for those doing the work, knowing that the tears are telling. And that's something that I've really learned a lot from the trauma work. That was another little piece of my feminine discovery with my friend Jennifer, who I've referenced a few times, and she'll be the first probably episode on this season's release, so hopefully everyone's already heard it. But the episode about trauma healing with Jennifer, about like how much I've not really embraced trauma because it sounds like story to me, and on the spiritual path of either bypassing or oneness or whatever it is, of forgiveness, of not giving trauma the weight that it needs to hold just by sheer velocity of the role that it's played in all of our lives. We all have childhood trauma. And so kind of doing that work last fall of trying to dig deeper to my own familial patterns in relationship between my parents and my own relationship with my father and whatever it might be, where these things, like the reality of my situation is my father was a traveling salesman. And so when I was a baby, when I was a kid, he would leave right? And I didn't understand Daddy was leaving because he has to go make money for the family. I understood Daddy doesn't love me, he's leaving, or whatever it is. And so the way in which that elicited a need for seduction of men, of the man, of the eternal father, because of this childhood trauma that was unconscious until I did this work with Jennifer to allow it to surface, and just realize that. And I think that was probably a precursor. Now, even just saying it to you, it was a precursor to me being able to fully marry myself and not have that, not play that external game, but full on up level my internal game.
Yeah. Yeah, allowing it to rise to the surface. And it was amazing, even when you picked up the phone this morning, and I could hear the residue of the tears, right? And the way that your voice had shifted, and the liberation that I just sensed within you of allowing that to come and to water, to see our tears as like nothing more than rain sometimes, and to water our soul rather than being something that we're pushing so hard against having happen. Yeah, it's an amazing thing.
I love that, tears as rain to water the soul.
That's the poet in me. I can't help it.
I love it. Bring it, baby. Bring it. Oh, my love, this has been so nourishing. As always, I wouldn't expect anything less.
Yes, I feel so saturated. Thank you. Is
there anything else that you would want to share to the audience, or anything in general?
I bow to each of you and to all of us for the willingness. I feel so much of it is the willingness to show up and to say yes, and to say yes to ourselves and all that this journey entails. And thank you, Andy, for hosting this conversation and for bringing it at this level. So you're constantly one of those lighthouses that is saying to me, beaming out to me and saying, look, I'm over here, I'm doing it too. And it's just, it's beautiful to be a part of that constellation. So much love for you.
Yes, likewise, as you know, as I've said several times on this podcast. And should we get everyone stoked for a release date for the book, or you want to save that?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, follow along and we'll see where it goes. It's something I'm really sitting with, and every morning calling in and asking, okay, what is the next step? And that's really how this whole process has gone, when I trust and when I release, and what the next step is. So follow along, coming soon.
And where can people find you if they want to hear more about you?
Great question. My website is GreysonElizabeth.com, and I'm on Instagram as Greyson Kirby, and on Facebook, same. So come check it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, my love, for your time and your presence.
Thank you.
Eternally for being you authentically.
Thank you. It goes both ways. I'm picturing you in the city of love and light right now, and just exploring in that inner marriage, celebrating you.
Thank you. All right, over and out.
How was listening to that for you? If you learned from or moved by the episode, pay it forward. Go to Apple now and leave a 5-star review so others can benefit. Join the Institute for Aliveness for a 1-week transformational fasting experience. Consider getting an astrology reading from Andy, or enroll in the 1-year health coach certification course. Whatever you do, don't let this learning pass you by. Do something now to impact your lifestyle for good.
Here we are.